Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for this session of the Susan Samueli Integrative Health Institute's research webinar series. I'm Shaista Malik, the Executive Director of the Susan Samueli Integrative Health Institute, and I'm happy to moderate this session of our research webinar series. Before we start, just wanted to review a few housekeeping items. This session is being recorded, and we will send all registrants the link to this recording. Uh, Everyone will remain mute to limit distractions, but please do feel like you can engage and submit questions in the Q&A feature, and we will hold a Q&A session at the end of the presentation. So please make sure to submit your questions as they come up, during the talk, and we will try to get to all of them if we can. So the Samueli Institute is committed to whole person health research, education, and clinical care. Our interdisciplinary researchers are dedicated to exploring the science of disease prevention and treatment, and we bring this series to you to share on the promise of integrative health research that is already occurring throughout the Institute's pilot studies grants, the Samueli Scholars Awards, and of course, our Samueli Endowed Chairs. To date, the Institute has supported 57 distinct research investigations in 32 pilot studies. And for more information, you can visit our website to understand more about our research portfolio. Our speaker today is Dr. Amir Rahmani. Dr. Rahmani is a professor of nursing and computer science at UCI, where he holds a Samueli Endowed Chair of Integrative Health. He also serves as co-director of the UCI Institute for Future Health and leads the multidisciplinary health sci tech group at UCI. His research spans mHealth, data science, wearable and mobile computing, machine learning, and agentic AI, as well as biosignal processing. Dr. Rahmani's contributions have been recognized with the UCI Beal Applied Innovations inaugural Faculty Innovation Fellowship, the Nokia Foundation's Research Excellence Award, and the European Union's Global Marie Curie Fellowship. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Rahmani.
Thank you so much, Dr. Malik, for the nice introduction. I'm so glad to be here and share some of our research and activities with the center and its audience. I'm going to talk today about several terms as keywords. As you already noticed, already in the title, there's this notion of intelligent agents or agentic AI. I would like to talk about real world settings or everyday settings, and the power of data being collected in real world settings, and how these technologies, remote sensing and intelligent agents or AI can help build more personalized and effective digital health solutions. So let me start with a little bit of, let me see if I can use my pointer. Excellent. Uh, Limitations of controlled settings, especially when it comes to research. Of course, we all start our research by usually inviting participants to our labs and trying to control for and isolate variables to ensure experimental precision, but there are a lot of limitations when we do research in closed labs and controlled settings. The first one is usually the real world complexity is ignored or at least oversimplified. And that usually leads to like the lack of generalizability, especially to different communities and their context and their needs, because you only have a limited group of participants joining our studies in closed settings, and usually these studies also have limited stakeholder involvements and what we decide to intervene or experiment are static, meaning that we already have very well-defined procedures from predefined procedures, and we just follow them during the session. So we don't have room for adaptivity or dynamic interventions. Uh, l- Living labs actually are a powerful alternative to these traditional lab controlled settings, particularly when the goal is to create like impactful real world solutions. Uh, a lot of reasons are behind this. The idea of living lab is that you really embed the research, evaluation, and translation all together in a sense in real world settings. And the idea is that you have uh, some sort of, let's say, research question intervention in mind. You co-develop that with your end users, with your community members, with your stakeholders. You run it, you evaluate it, you learn from it, and then you kind of go in an adaptive cycle to refine it and then try to incorporate what you've learned. And especially because you're now running this in real world settings, you have all access to all the complexities or considerations that for example, intervention needs to really be successful in real world settings. So that enhances the validity and usually transferability. So it's really an iterative loop of developing, testing, and evaluating and learning from it, and then you continue over and over to reach that level of satisfaction. There are a lot of study designs these days that are highly aligned with this notion. For example, if you're interested in identifying what intervention works for which subgroups, there is this notion of smart design, different than, of course, traditional RCT or real randomized trials or clinical trials. Here, you have this idea of sequential multiple assignment randomized trials or smart design. The idea in smart design is that it's not like you only randomize once. You can randomize, let's say, your participants into different groups, let's say control arm and your intervention arm, or intervention A and B, and see who responds to that intervention and who does not respond. And then sequentially, those who do not respond then can be again randomized to another intervention, maybe intervention C or combination of intervention A and B. And you can imagine this could be, like, say, for example, for a chronic disease management, maybe one intervention could be certain, for example, like medications, or the other one could be maybe a lifestyle change, or maybe in physical activity, or the other one can be diet, and all of them, and you can see who responds to what. So it gives you these optimizations of intervention, the possibility to optimize your interventions, and flexibility, meaning that you don't need to have static interventions and just at the end of the study, just realize that, okay, maybe 80% of your participants didn't really respond to that. Uh, but one important aspect is when we want to run studies in real world, we really need access to data, because data is really, in our opinion, is the lifeblood of health and living lab. This is a paper by the other co-director of our center, Professor Ramesh Jain, where we actually tried to make a case that uh, data availability needs to be enhanced radically. In fact, if you look at how much data, and I borrowed this slide again from Ramesh, Professor Jain, if you look at how much data we collect from our cars and compare it with how much data we collect from our children, you see this big gap. A modern car generates more data about its performance in an hour than we collect about our children's health in an entire year. So it's really like a unbelievably huge gap. We car actually, each car for different components of it, right? For example, for engine health, for doors, for pedestrian detection. All these things are a lot of each internal component of a car continuously generates longitudinal data, and that helps us to immediately understand and receive warnings and certain things that may go wrong and so on. But unfortunately, that's not the case, at least traditionally, about the data that we collect from ourselves or our children. But thanks to the technology these days, especially wearable and portable technology, we can bridge that gap. There is a possibility to collect data every second or millisecond scales from individuals. As we speak, I'm currently being monitored by my smart band every 50 milliseconds, in fact, to look at my sleep, my also physiology and so on. So there are a lot of, in fact, I'm using this watch, this band in the center. These days, there are a lot of off-the-shelf wearable devices that also give you access to their raw signals so that you can even run your own type of analytics for research or practice. You can look at blood pressure, you can look at pulse oxygenation, heart rate variability, especially for stress and pain, and many other, of course, parameters that are available. Some of these devices are even FDA approved. For example, if I'm not mistaken, Omron's blood pressure cuff or blood pressure watch actually is approved, and it has this invisible cuff inside the band that can that inflates periodically and measures your blood pressure. There is this also European this band from a European company, I think Switzerland company, Actia, which actually measures your blood pressure also real time. But the list is even longer, of course. I don't want to spend too much time on that, but there are even remote patient monitoring devices these days, from smart headbands that measures your EEG, especially from the front side of your head, highly useful for sleep-related outcomes, as well as device like sleep pads from Withings that you can put under the mattress and monitor your, almost an invisible way and continuous way, monitor your sleep and physiology. Devices like Core that measures your core body temperature and so on. And the list goes on and on. Uh, Devices out there that are capable of monitoring your, for example, level of alcohol in your blood. It measures from it actually, so it has a chemical sensor in it that measures your sweat, analyzes your sweat and can measure the amount of alcohol in your body in real time. Fetal monitors and of course patches for ECG that I think you have seen these days a lot. But these are more or less the technological enablers showing that we can now really look at data, both contextual data as well as the actual physiology and measures. But to just show you some of the research that we did and we tried to implement them in communities and in also everyday settings, I selected about 2 to 3 projects to just quickly walk you through them. One of the projects that we completed a few years ago with some of my colleagues here at UCI was with collaboration with an organization called Moms OC in Orange County. This organization serves especially underserved populations regarding educations on pregnancy and also providing them with like coaching and advice and so on. And what we wanted to do, we wanted to leverage this community-centered care model to build our technology on top of it to further augment it, because this is actually a very good model that I think twice a month they had this home visitation uh, program, but we actually wanted to make it continuous by giving these pregnant mothers smartwatch, a smart ring, and also a mobile app to understand their mm, context, and designing another mobile app uh, to help them be more physically active. So it was a physical activity kind of intervention. So all of these mothers in the study received a smart watch, as I said, a smart ring. The intervention that we built was called Two Happy Hearts. And the idea is that these pregnant mothers are supposed to, or any, all in general, pregnant mothers are supposed to have at least 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity every week. This is an ACOG guideline, but unfortunately, many mothers do not meet that. So what we tried to do was to come up with a personalized AI-driven recommendation system for each pregnant mother to tailor the intervention and the coaching for them to be able to reach those guidelines. So the idea was that every week we wanted to adjust the amount of recommended physical activity based on their performance, their elevation of heart rate, the intensity, the minutes they had, and also their preferences. So I'm not going to go through all this complicated kind of implementation of our servers in the back end and also the front end uh, mobile app for participants or pregnant mothers. But the idea is all these measurements from devices as well as self-reported outcomes about fatigue and any maybe discomfort or other measurements will go to our backend where we have this AI recommendation engine which tries to actually look at the progress during that week and adjust the level of recommended physical activity because each of us are different. We have different lifestyle, access to resources and so on. Uh, the app had different components. It wasn't just for the physical activity, but also provided some sort of mindfulness for these pregnant mothers to also help them better manage their emotions and stress. Uh, and at the end, just showing you the result of one of our papers, which showed actually this 12-week program helped these pregnant models in over this actually each chart shows one mother, one woman, and this intervention helped almost doubling the duration of exercise for these participants, as you see, almost 98% increase. Not only it increased the duration, but also the uh, intensity level. So the time they spend to do more light to moderate zone actually increased also by 64%. But showing you that the power of data and such a very, these pregnant mothers were, for example, in this study, which is also on pregnant mothers, we used heart rate variability and heart rate from a smartwatch, and we monitored these mothers for, I would say, about 8 to 9 months, second trimester, all the way to post 2 or 3 months postpartum. And what we did, we tried to go back and see what kind of other insights a data like this can provide. One of the surprising kind of outcomes was the fact that we could stratify the risk of preterm birth. Preterm birth is a major global health concern, and at least at the time that we ran the study, which was published in 2024, we were the only study who had such a high resolution data from pregnant mother. In fact, every 50 millisecond over 9 months, imagine how much data we had for each participant. We had 58 participants. Unfortunately, 7 of these participants ended up having preterm birth. The sample size is not big, but even this small sample size helped us building a machine learning model which could detect or stratify or predict the risk of preterm birth almost at the end of the second trimester. Already in the second trimester, it could predict whether this person, with almost 80% accuracy, 79%, whether this person is going to end up having preterm birth or not. So with clear differences, the red actually group shows the preterm group and the other one uh, shows the term. And for that, we use this autoencoder anomaly detection machine learning model. And as you see, you can easily see the differences between several of these heart rate variability parameters between term and preterm population. And imagine now, rather than 60 participants, if you had like 6,000 participants, of course, the model would be even much more accurate. So this is more like a pilot, if you will, or proof of concept type of work. Yes, so we have also done a lot of other research on how we can remotely, for example, capture other outcomes, for example, mental health outcomes like loneliness or depression. Again, using the same type of technology for your reference, because I know meeting is being recorded. I just wanted to list some of them so you can maybe review offline. But I would like to a little bit change the context because I want to also spend some time talking about the agentic AI as I promised in the title. But before that, I wanted to also mention that many of these studies used either the older version of the platform that we built at our center called ZotCare at that time, which is actually a three-tier platform that can mm, help quickly uh, design and deploy mobile health studies because we've already integrated a lot of these sensors and mobile apps and all those things that are needed to run a study that I showed you. This is a paper about it. About 3 years ago, we published it. It shows how you can use this platform to quickly run mobile health services. Recently, with the help of BL Applied Innovation, we also translated this technology. Now it's available outside our center to any researcher who wants to use wearable and mobile technology, not only to collect data, but also to design interventions. This is actually a short demo of the platform that you can integrate already a lot of devices that we added. You can use the platform also to design your questionnaires or any kind of self-reported data that you want to collect. We also have studios there that you can design, for example, in this scenario, daily kind of physical activity intervention, and the participants will see that immediately on their phone, and also adding the alerts to look at, for example, certain adverse outcomes or anything or missing data or any other alerts that as a researcher you want to receive, and also being able to track the adherence of the participants to all of these components. For example, maybe your devices, your questionnaires, and whether they're completing the surveys or not. But yeah, so let me now go to the next uh, part of the talk, this switching the context a little bit and talk about the notion of conversational health agents, or these days we know LLMs, chatbots, and all of these are very popular. And in fact, our group was also among the very first in 2023 who implemented and proposed this idea of having agents for healthcare. At that time, we called it conversational health agents, or CHA, and we released the very first open source platform to build conversational health agents, or openCHA. And the idea is LLMs alone can hallucinate. They do not provide personalized advice because they're pre-trained or trained on a certain static source of corpus of data. And oftentimes they're also not evidence-based because they can just provide or use data from any source, which may not be reliable. So the idea is when we build an agent, we can have an orchestrator, and this orchestrator usually has access to two large language models, at least one for interactions, of course, with the participants or user, and the other LLM can be the brain or the planner for reasoning and deciding what to do next in a multi-step way. For example, you want to go and bring some data, personal data, for example, from outside, maybe from EHR, maybe from your mobile, or for example, your Apple Watch or whatever, to provide personalized advice. And openCHA is capable of doing that. Or you have already, and I'm going to show you a demo of it, or you already have a source of knowledge, curated knowledge, for example, like NIH UMLS, or Nutritionix about food and nutrition, or drug bank about drugs and side effects. So you can connect your agent and limit it and constrain it to only use those source of knowledge rather than searching in Google. And also, you may have built your already models for certain predictions, maybe a model for predicting, I don't know, or looking at arrhythmia, for example, or Apple Watch. If you have an Apple Watch or many other watches, it already has a model for arrhythmia detection that you can leverage rather than using the LLM. So that's the idea of an openCHA, and an orchestrator in the center and the heart would decide and will do a multi-step decision making and decide step by step what to do next. openCHA is now being standardized by ISO and IEEE. We have had several workshops hosted by us here at UCI, and we are standardizing these. And we also collaborated with companies like NVIDIA and so on. And we also conducted a lot of hackathons and boot camps in Stanford, Bay Area, as well as in conferences at UCLA. But I want to maybe show you one quick demo, a 2-minute demo of how an agent can interact with external models and external data. Let me go to my browser now and share my screen. Yeah, so in this demo, actually it's a demo connected to real data of one participant. It's an N of 1 data. This participant collected data of her sleep for more than almost 2 years, or almost 2 years of data from Oura Ring, data from food logs, almost every meal, and also other devices like a scale and so on. So we connected that data to our agent to see if we can provide personalized food recommendations rather than generic recommendations, because now the agent has access to all those personal data of this individual. So let me play that.
In this video, we demonstrate an example of personalized food recommendations on openCHA. We first select the tasks that openCHA can perform to generate the response. We select the task to interact with users' food data and health outcomes collected from external wearable devices, and one task utilizing causal inference algorithms to estimate nutrition effects. Then we take 2 tasks retrieving food nutrition content relevant to the user's query and requesting additional information from the user. Let's start by asking the agent to show my personal nutrition effects on a specific health outcome, such as deep sleep. To do
You see here, the user is asking a personal question. This person is asking, show me my personal nutrition. So now the agent understands this person is asking personal information, so personal question. So it's not supposed to just go and search and give population level advice on how to improve deep sleep. So it needs to analyze the data of this individual to provide what works for this person, because we're all unique and different type of food acts differently in different people's bodies.
this, openCHA will collect data from a food log and deep sleep information tracked by a wearable device, subsequently estimating the causal effects of nutrition on deep sleep. The response will reveal the nutrition effects on deep sleep, with values indicating the estimated average treatment effects of the nutrients per unit. We can also ask for food recommendations by querying the foods to improve certain health outcomes. For example, we say like, could you recommend me a food to improve my deep sleep duration?
Now you see the agent was capable of analyzing the data and understanding, for example, whenever this person had food rich in vitamin E, or for example, rich in zinc and maybe low in caffeine and blah, blah, this person the following night had a better sleep, deep sleep duration. Now the LLM knows this information and can use this existing knowledge to recommend foods, because this is not really actionable now unless you turn them into like food recommendations.
This will trigger the agent to execute the retrieve food task to obtain the relevant foods and their nutrition contents and personal nutrition effects. The response demonstrates the food suggestions to improve the deep sleep and the explanation based on the estimated personal nutrition effects. The recommendations are explainable. By querying with "Please explain your recommendations," openCHA will display the rationale behind the food choices, focusing on their nutritional impact. But what if you're missing an ingredient or food? No worries. openCHA's interactivity comes into play. Remember that this isn't just a static food list. It's a conversation with your dietary needs. Ask a follow-up question like, "I don't have the recommended foods. What are my alternatives?" And openCHA adapts, offering alternative suggestions. By calling the tasks, openCHA not only delivers nutrition-oriented food recommendations but also enhances the user experience with personalization, explainability, and interactivity.
Well, this is just a demo, a lot of limitations and considerations if you want to deploy a solution like this into, practice. But just showing you the potentials of what can be done these days with all these technologies. By the way, all these videos are available on the openCHA.com website, and also because this is an open source platform, all the materials to have your own instance are open source, and you can download with and there are helps and videos on how to use it. So let me go back to my slides and continue. So this was, as I said, a demo, and in this demo, in fact, the data was coming from the Centralive platform because it was wearable data, but also there were some models for understanding the causal effect and also analyze the signals. And this agent was connected to these external sources. But I want to show you another demo, but this is not a video, maybe just 2 slides, quick demo. In another paper, we tried to build an agent for nutrition recommendations for diabetes, type 2 diabetes. And the idea was, okay, people now go to ChatGPT and ask these kind of questions, okay? And we wanted to see, how accurate these models or reliable these models are. These generic, generic chatbots like GPT, Gemini, and so on. And B, we wanted to see if we connect our agent to a reliable source of knowledge, external knowledge, can it help to boost the performance? So, and in this scenario, we connected the openCHA or the agent to this database called Nutritionix. It has APIs and you can connect your app or your product or anything to it. And then you have access to more than 1 million items, grocery foods with all from most of the brandings in the US, or you have access to a lot of restaurant items. You have more than 200,000 items in restaurant menus and so on. So now, and these are validated and kind of checked by nutritionists and so on, and they're really a kind of curated source of knowledge that you can use. So what we did first, we ran a study with a collaboration of a group of registered dietitians. The idea was we wanted to see whether an LLM, a chatbot, can pass the registered dietitian exam, the RD exam. And actually, as you may know, the RD exam has about more than over actually 1,000 or 1,100 multiple choice questions. So we asked all these questions, and of course, we had access to the ground truth from it's actually about a year ago or 2 years ago. It was published in 2025. At that time, GPT-4o was out, and we compared different LLMs. GPT-4 actually scored a 7%, which is above the RD exam passing threshold. And also we had other models, of course, 3.5 and so on, which they scored lower than GPT at that time. So this paper is available, of course, also for you to review. But after this, we wanted to now compare to see, okay, now we know GPT-4, how good it is, but let's see if an agent can outperform GPT. And when I say agent, this agent is not something totally different. In fact, the agent uses GPT-4 as its base LLM, but it augments it with access to nutritionics. So in other words, this is GPT-4. This row is GPT-4 plus nutritionics through an agentic approach. And we noticed that when you don't have this agentic approach and the chat only uses its existing internal knowledge, it can sometimes give you inaccurate answers. For example, we asked, I had a spinach and banana smoothie for breakfast and stuff like that. And then, is the content of these meals appropriate for my diabetes? So asking whether what I had was risky or not. GPT-4 in this scenario had two wrong answers. The amount of fat and the amount of protein in these two were not properly calculated, and GPT mentioned they are not risky. But when we actually but the openCHA, because it actually used nutritionics and got access to real curated data, we noticed that in fact the amount of fat was risky, and this was like a false negative, if you will, by GPT. So it's really important when you build and use chatbots and AI to connect them to reliable sources of knowledge, and also for validity, and also and personal data for personalization. Yeah, I think for that would be that's about it. I wanted to also be mindful of time and have some time for Q&A. So thank you so much for the time. I like to hear your questions and have a great discussion, hopefully.
Thank you, Dr. Rahmani, for that excellent talk. I think you wove together very well how continuous wearable sensing, community-centered digital interventions, and agentic AI architectures can come together to really shift what, we believe in integrative health, that shift from episodic, reactive care towards continuous, predictive, and personalized health. And so thank you for showing how you've been moving this, from all the way back like 4 or 5 years ago, you were thinking about agentic AI. So I'd like to just ask everyone to put in their questions into the Q&A, but while we're waiting for that, maybe we can get started with some questions I have, which is, what do you think is sort of the biggest barrier in moving conversational health agents from research prototypes into routine clinical care, in terms of like workflow integration, regulation, reimbursement, and, last but not least, clinician trust?
Great question. I would say even there is a gap before all those steps these days, which is, in my opinion, a proper evaluation of these healthcare chatbots. Because um, gen generic general purpose chatbots, there are very well established evaluation frameworks in terms of benchmarks, metrics, and standards and all those things, how you evaluate them. So there are leaderboards that you can say, okay, DeepSeek comes and it outperforms, I don't know, GPT by on this. But for healthcare, especially because it's really also case by case, evaluation frameworks specialized for that specific, for example, condition, diseases is actually missing. We try to do it for certain, for example, mental health chatbots. We try to look at safety of mental health chatbots. So there's really a need to evaluate properly the answers of these chatbots, and that really needs a multidisciplinary team of domain experts and technology experts to sit together, properly craft, and also that's one thing. And usually how people evaluate that in chatbots is like what we say is a single turn. You ask a question, there's a response, and then you evaluate that. But how about if it's like let's say a conversation is multi-turn, or maybe for a session, maybe for 1 hour, and you can't also just only look at one snapshot of answer. You really need to, especially for healthcare, because that's how a coach, a clinician, and nurse will operate, right? It's not just question and answer, one turn. You engage, you walk through, you disambiguate all of those things, and how now we can evaluate the entire package. So evaluation is a big, big hassle. I think that can solve a lot of downstream other barriers because if you have a robust way of evaluating this, then you can also better, translate. Sorry, you're mute, unmute, Dr. Malik.
Thank you. And so we have some questions from the audience. The first question is how, and I think it's along a little bit similar lines, but how have you mitigated AI chatbots' harmful advice in your work? And what would you say is the role of AI agents versus human providers?
Uh, Regarding safety, and that's an active research field of research, and we do also research in that field. We used several approaches. When it comes to mitigating those, for example, safety issues, you have at least two stages to do that. One is at the training time of those models. Let's say you're building an LLM, and the other one is at the inference time when you already deployed that LLM, how you can in real time understand. So putting guardrails or let's say middlewares around it, right? So and the first one is more like a training approach is needed. For the second one, you have an agentic approach that you can put agents around LLMs to make sure when a question goes in an LLM, it is safe even to be processed, or maybe if disambiguation is needed, maybe interact further with the user to understand the intention, and then try to produce an answer. Or once the answer is generated, again, it needs to pre-processed or not pre-processed. It needs to be vetted again by the agent against certain rules, guidelines, and even external source of knowledge before being delivered and passed to the user. So that's more like agentic approach at runtime. But there are also for training time techniques like constitutional AI. They call it constitutional AI is one of those category of metrics that category of approaches that you try to during training you define certain constitutions so that you never should provide, for example, medication advice, or you should never provide advice on self-harm, those things kind of things. And then you let the model to criticize itself and see if it's actually following those kinds. And then it's an iterative process. And then you train it using those kind of techniques to make sure uh, that at training, mm, you're mitigating those situations. But that needs you to have access to the model, like open source models. For example, when you're using a closed system, you can't do that. That's why an agentic platform would be a better approach. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. It's very clear you've been very thoughtful about the safeguards, right? So the next question is, as a practicing MD, how could I use those tools better to better understand my patient's needs? Are there any tools already developed for clinicians for the use of wearables? And I like that question. We have patients bring in their Oura Ring data, their Fitbit data. Are there tools that we can use readily now or not?
Uh, in fact, the answer for as part of a practice, I haven't seen like a really kind of translated into practice that, for example, connected to Epic or kind of really implemented fully into the workflow. I haven't seen, but outside that realm, like yes, in fact, even the platform that we built, I showed you Centralive, how you can collect data from wearables and stuff like that. We put the our agentic approach on top of it. Now you can interact with the platform and say, ask, okay, summarize the sleep quality of my patient, patient A on the month of maybe January. And it will summarize everything for you, all the wearable data analysis. But that's still available for now to researchers. So the idea is that how we can uh, because there are a lot of privacy and the regulations and all those barriers that you can connect and translate this into real practice. But for example, if someone we have had in fact for wellness coaches that are using our platform for their practice because that really They don't need to connect it to how to say EHR or something. This is more like a dashboard. They have a web-based dashboard. They can give these wearables to their patients they don't need to be patients, their clients, and help them for lifestyle change and so on. Yeah, there are platforms out there, including ours. We are not the only one. Yeah.
Got it. That's great. The next question is, some of these agents have contextual data sources that are very large, i.e. wearable heart rate data from a wearable. Um, how have you approached architecture for retrieving relevant information in an efficient way, i.e. when using RAGs that have found the need to summarize data sources for more efficient retrieval, or curious on your general thoughts here? I love, by the way, the mix of the audience. It's both clinicians and deep CS folks, experts. So I love that.
Yeah, me too. Uh, that's a great question. We do not. That's another reason that we really use an agentic approach for analyzing wearable data and connect it to the agent. So we connect the LLM to a pool of uh, mm, analytical models that we have over many years we have built to do understand trends and change points in longitudinal data, and also kind of understand like the uh, uh, relative change of week by week and all these things. So we don't pass all that uh, 50 millisecond of data to an agent or to an LLM. That's the reason, if you remember, there were three boxes: data, knowledge, and models. That will fall under the model category. So we have built a lot of models over the years, and we call them. For example, first we call the agent actually, and say I should say the agent, because it's intelligent enough to understand, okay, now that I'm analyzing heart rate, first I need to call that model to pre-process and clean and summarize and aggregate, for example, data to this resolution, because maybe the person is asking the last week. Maybe what if the person is asking my sleep last year? Then the agent really need to decide and change zoom in or zoom out. So yes, there is RAG, but we don't just use RAG. We also use existing models that we have built to pre-process and aggregate or do mining of data. So it's a really it's a complex decision making. Yeah.
And kind of going back, so that is great. Kind of going back to the integration with health and health systems. Certainly, UCI Health is open to use of AI, and we have, for instance, AI Scribe.
Yes.
And sort of the next leap from that is, how do you use AI for coding a visit and sort of the back end? But I think what you've been working on, and what you presented today, is really the patient facing, piece. And so, do you think that in the future, health systems are going to run all their own private agents, or will there be kind of a federated ecosystem of, interoperable agents across systems?
That's a great question. I don't have the very perfect answer for it, because it really depends on many other angles. But I think for the beginning, it will be more like private. I really doubt that, because we haven't even solved the data sharing part. So let alone. So I think right at the beginning it will be agents within maybe system. Maybe UC system is going to have their own. Maybe with partnership with big players, maybe Amazon and so on, but isolated. That's how unfortunately things are practiced. But eventually it has to be more federated. And if, let's say, we have policymakers, maybe, and other kind of government supporting that, it can, of course, accelerate. Otherwise, I think it's going to be for now more local, not local, but at least within a system. Maybe Kaiser's has its own, or in that space. And also, one thing that I really believe is very helpful, because this is an integrative health kind of type of event. I think we do not need to wait for that to happen. Many of these can already take place in a much l- more like under the wellness or integrative health domain that you really may not even need to kind of go through all those barriers. And maybe that can be just another source of information to just help, because anyway, for example, coaching and all in under integrative health, there are a lot of continuous type of services, right? That are provided as part of coaching and so on. I really don't think giving a smartwatch to everyone is that uh, impossible. And maybe that's a good starting point to start, test, learn, and show the benefits, and then maybe expand to the broader health system and all maybe different units, especially chronic disease management and so on.
Got it. No, that's and we're kind of wrapping up on time. I don't see any more questions, but I did want to bring it back to your, mom's study. In that preterm uh, birth research, which physiological features appeared most informative? And I guess where I'm going with this is, even in our cardiology clinic, I think the wearables are giving us insight into physiology and obviously known physiology and biology, but also revealing potentially new mechanisms. And did you get any windows into that yet, or is that next stage?
Uh, s- a few heart rate variability metrics were most predictive, and heart rate, of course, itself, but mostly heart rate variability, not all of them. And if I want to go back, especially yeah, AVNN and RMSSD, these two, plus the heart rate, these three were the top three actually metrics. And also in the frequency domain, we have this SDN, SD1, SD2. So mostly all of them are heart rate variability, but not all of the features, a few of them. But I don't want to generalize that because we only had like 58 participants and only 6 or 7 preterms. So uh, I wish we could just do like a larger clinical trial, just observational study, right? It doesn't need to be, retrospectively, we can look at the data and see if how it, the thing that these days, for example, like I'm wearing $100 device and it gives me that IBI for every beat, and maybe that would be the next grant.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's very cool. I think heart rate variability, like you said, it has so many components to it, depending on how you measure it and sort of frequency versus, time-based domain measures and what can you learn about the parasympathetic, like the underlying physiology, like the parasympathetic system, is really interesting. But I think we don't have any further. Oh, no, we have one more question. So, for the mom study, was there a specific reason for selecting moms with a base level of aerobic activity versus sedentary?
Um, No, actually, we didn't have any criteria for who can be in the study. I don't know if that's it as a question, but the idea was if fully sedentary or there are these guidelines, like everyone needs to get to that. So, and the idea was some people were highly sedentary, some were like already active. The engine was supposed to understand that because every week and every day it's actually observing this person is already like at this level A or level B or C, and tries to kind of depending on their situation and their satisfaction and also the elevation of their heart rate. Because one thing that we wanted to really check was, okay, just simply telling them go and have like 5,000 steps won't be enough because you want to make sure there is an elevation of heart rate to a certain degree that you can call it, for example, moderate exercise. So, but any person, we didn't exclude anyone fully sedentary or highly physically active could be actually hired and we didn't have any exclusion criteria. But the idea was that the model should adapt to that person's needs. Does it answer the question, or I just want to make sure I didn't get the question wrong?
No, I think that did, and hopefully the participant, if they have a follow-up question, they can write it in. Um, but I think this was a great discussion. I love that we had enough time for a Q&A, and you presented. Thank you for presenting, what you've done, and your forward thinking from even before this was in sort of common language. But it's an exciting future where AI is enabling, clinicians and researchers and amplifying what we know through continuous sensing and mechanistic models. Um, and so it's really nice to have you leading a lot of that. And I love the future health, coining that. And so it's exciting to get a glimpse of how whole person precision health might actually get operationalized. So thank you, Dr. Rahmani, and thank you to all the participants for attending.
Thank you for having me.
Great. Great.
Bye.
Have a great afternoon, everyone.